My guest today is the brilliant and kind and really, really funny Kimberly Williams-Paisley. You probably know and love her from her roles in Father of the Bride or According to Jim, and you may have read her tender memoir, Where the Light Gets In, which it is such a good and gorgeous read. It's about losing her mom to a rare form of dementia. You may know her also for her advocacy work for dementia research or ending food insecurity. I know her mostly as a lady who just really likes decorating her home with chickens. Kim, I feel so lucky that we're talking today. I just feel like I missed you, and this is my opportunity to do this.
Hi, friend.
Hey, darling.
It's so good to see you.
Do you mind if I ask you, just to start, about the very early reason why you are the coolest friend that I have?
I thought you were going to ask about the chickens because, you can't just drop that and then not explain.
Explain, rationalize.
I would like to talk about, this is my interview. I would like to talk about why you know that about me, because this is partly why I love you so much, is that I had never met you in person. But I heard about you from friends, and I started listening to your amazing podcast.
Aww.
And then I heard you were coming to town, and I feel like I stalked you, but I'm not sure if that's like your impression of it. But anyway, I reached out, and next thing I know, you're spending the night at my house.
I was like, I'll be right there. I knew you for 5 minutes, and I'm just like getting into your car unbidden.
And suddenly I'm making you salmon, and you're staying in my shishak, which, yes, is full of chickens. Because we live on what we affectionately call a farm. It's not really a farm, but we do have some horses, and we have a lot of like wild turkey and some vermin.
So great. And you are married to amazing musician Brad Paisley, and which is why you're in a den of guitars right now. Just a super powerful place of.
This is my living room. This is not my living room. This is actually Brad's studio. So yes, I'm surrounded by very manly guitars.
I do feel like something super core about you is the desire to like make it ridiculous, like make it more than what it could, because otherwise you won't remember it.
Right.
I think it could have been at a 4, but we'll put it at an 11.
Please, let's just make it interesting anyway.
And you've also worked with a bajillion comedians over the years, like Steve Martin and a guy named Jim. I mean, I imagine just like rolling with it and being, like an early student of everyone else's improv is also core to your memories.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've learned so much from the people that I've worked with. Yeah. I mean, and things you wouldn't expect too, like Steve Martin telling me to get a good therapist when I asked for advice. He's like, oh, yeah, I've got advice. Best advice he ever gave me, by the way.
Because you were in college at the time?
I was 19, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And like propelled into insane fame. And he was, how old was he at the time? I know he always had white hair, so I could never tell.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? I ran into him at the Opry here in Nashville years ago, and we realized that I was the age that he was when we'd done the movie.
Stop.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So yeah, he was like in his mid-40s when we did that movie.
That is a strange feeling, though, of aging into an awareness of those very strange cost of aging. Mm-hmm. And that is some of what I wanted to ask you about, because you have, you have incredible depth of insight over what it means to be a mom, but also a daughter. And I wondered if I could ask you a little bit about when you first realized that you were going to have to get a handle on your mom's diagnosis. She was diagnosed with a rare form of dementia, and it sounded like it was both very uncertain and really scary very early on to just figure out the scope of what she was going through.
Yeah. So my mom was 61 years old when she got officially diagnosed with primary progressive aphasia, which we found out after she died was actually caused by Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, I see.
And we didn't know that at the time. It was really wild because I was a new mom. Actually, when she told us I wasn't yet pregnant, and when we look back, when I got engaged was like the first time that I saw something off with my mom. And I joke about it now, but the first sign that something was really wrong was that she wasn't a fan of my husband.
The world's coolest, most handsome man.
Obviously, it was dementia.
I love that. I love that. Well, because you have like an unbelievably romantic story where he was like, I mean, it's very like, and I loved you from the first second I even thought about the fact that you might exist.
Right. And I called my parents and I was like, oh my gosh, this man is incredible. There is no way I'm not marrying him. And they were like horrified. My mom was horrified.
Oh, no.
But I mean, there were other things going on. It was like I'm the firstborn, and he's like a country boy, and we grew up in New York, and they were like all intellectuals, and they just didn't understand. But to me, that was part of the appeal. It was like so hot, because he was so different, and but, and then it was at our wedding, and suddenly, like the day of my wedding, my mom threw a fit, and I write about this in the book. She threw a fit because she wasn't included in the ceremony. It was just such a weird, out of left field sort of thing. And there were more and more of those irrational kind of things happening. She was actually coming to us not long after that and saying, it's so weird. I can't write my name on my checks. And it's so weird. I'm having a really hard time finding the right word in a sentence. And, at first I was like, Mom, I think you're just not getting enough sleep. I think you're too stressed out at work. And how can we manage stress? And then she officially like went through the testing, and it took a long time to figure it out. But she finally came to us and said, okay, well, she and my dad sat us down and said, this is something called primary progressive aphasia. And at the time, we've learned so much since then. This was in like 2005, 2006. At the time, she said, do not tell anyone. This has got to be a family secret. This is a vault. She was embarrassed.
Yeah.
And, so I think we missed out on so much by abiding by her wishes. We missed out on community, on resources that could have helped us so much navigate this really challenging road. We missed out on just connection with people about what was going on.
Yeah.
And we didn't know the danger my father was in.
Oh my gosh.
In being her primary caregiver. Now, I will say, being totally transparent here, now my mom passed away in 2016. My dad, he told us over Christmas that he has primary progressive aphasia, as far as they can tell, that he has some form of dementia, which they believe is Alzheimer's as well. He's 83. So this is an entirely different thing. He also has the benefit of everything we've learned since my mom had her illness. And it was night and day. And I really want to take what I'm learning from him and the way he's approaching this and just throw that into how I want to approach my life from here on out. He sat us down and he said, look, this is what they're saying. This doesn't define me. First of all. Second of all, you can tell whoever you want. You take care of you, Third of all, this is what I want my life to look like from here on out. And he had thought about it and he outlined it. And they've already talked to a lawyer. He's cleaning up the house.
I mean, some of the things that stand out to me is when your son is so young and having to explain to him why his grandmother seems so upset. Like, when normally, normally you'd want to say, if it was a stranger, you could say like, oh, that's a totally irrational response. I'm so sorry that she's mad at you. But because you're trying to protect both kinds of love, how did you find a way into that dynamic?
I think we were a little too we were a lot too deferential to the disease. And so I think we did the best we could. And to anyone in this situation, like, give yourself grace because you're doing the best you can. Everybody's doing the best they can. But, I think my dad was deferential to the illness. And so mom was very upset because my oldest son is Huck and my youngest son is Jasper. And my mom could not say Jasper And so Huck and my mom had such a beautiful relationship when he was a toddler and she was in these, middle years of dementia, because she could sit on the floor and they'd make up silly games and they were delighted with each other. Right. And so they made up a really silly, delightful game. And he'd say Jasper. And she'd go, Splaspa. And then they both howl with laughter. Right. And it was so funny until suddenly it wasn't. And she got really upset and then suddenly felt like he was making fun of her. And my dad took her side, as he did so often in those days, just like so loyal, fiercely loyal. And they took off, and my dad called and he said, she wants an apology. And I was like, okay, I've got a 4-year-old. Let me sit down with him and try to explain why he can't play this game anymore and why it hurt her feelings. And, ultimately, like, I think it was really good for him because I was very honest, and he didn't quite understand it, but he apologized. And then he learned he had to be a little bit more careful around Nana. And there were other ways that I was surprised by how it wasn't necessarily a bad thing for him. It's not necessarily a bad thing to realize someone's limitations, but like when we moved her into long-term care, I just thought it was really hard for me to see her there. And I thought it would be really hard for Huck to see her there, but it wasn't. And he could immerse himself in it and be in the present the way my mom could at the time, be in the present in the way that I couldn't. And, I learned from them. I learned from watching them interact and learned from how we could leave there. And Huck was able to just let it go and move on, and had a great time. He would have a great time in a place like that because there were funny and interesting people.
Yeah. Even just you saying that, like, there's such a kindness that you have about it, because I know you were so scared. I know, and it's like a scary and chaotic situation to wonder how your child's going to respond to people who will say all kinds of things, people who, might think that child is theirs. There's something very not nostalgic about how you approach this. Because one thing I get very frustrated by is some of the romantic language around caregiving, like, it must be so rewarding, as if meaningful love isn't an enormous, sometimes like soul-sucking existential crisis in which you can genuinely worry about the health of the people that you love. Like, there's none of that sort of romance about the way that you talk about this.
Yeah, it was no. But you've got to find the humor. To me, that was the thing, was we had to just find the hilarious things about it, I love That's the only way through.
I love that.
It's not romantic.
But
unless you find diapers romantic.
Totally. Yes. I do think that the tragic comedy of life gets to hit the high notes and the low notes really well. So I love that. I love that. Alzheimer's is often so difficult in relationship to grief because it's so uncertain when to say and how to say goodbye. You lived with your mom's disease for over 10 years before she died. And it sounds like discovering and rediscovering ways to relate to her was a huge part of maybe you growing as a young mom and into your own, I don't want to say middle age, but like complete adulthood in a way.
Yeah, you can say middle age. It's not a bad word.
I started calling myself middle aged at about 29, so never really sure when that starts. But you're right. Just when I think I've lost her, I find her again in small things and brief moments. They deepen the mystery and feel something like miracles.
Yes, and that keeps happening, by the way, which is really awesome because she hasn't been on Earth in her, soul form since 2016, and she still shows up, and I'm still healing that relationship in wonderful, beautiful, miraculous ways.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting.
Can I take you back to that moment? Because it was 2 years ago when you first realized that you were having an issue. it sounds like it was a very dramatic experience in which you were
Yeah,
in public raising money for Alzheimer's. You
right.
get up to be your gorgeous, hilarious MC self. This is a
Yeah,
party that I've been to. It's this huge gathering.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, tell me what happened.
Yeah, so the theme is 90s, and I understand the assignment. And I am Cindy Crawford, and my hair is huge, and I've got the
my gosh,
freckle.
I
Yeah,
can
I've got the
see
little.
that. The
Yeah, I've got
waddle.
the off the shoulders, like silk, purple and black stripe fabulousness.
Pretty
And
woman, but not pretty woman because you're also just
I'm
not
just
a sex
me.
worker.
I'm just me. Um, so I waltz out, and I'm supposed to kick off the whole night with my brother and my sister. And yeah, I opened my mouth to welcome everybody, and I had no voice. It was just complete constriction. And it was terrifying. And it went to crickets. There was just silence in the crowd. And my sister turned to me and she said, "Did you just lose your voice?" And it was like that moment, that just stretches. It felt like an hour where everyone was just like mouths agape staring at me. And I was staring back. And in reality, it was probably a few seconds. My sister just took over because she's such a professional. And then the next thing you know, we're like doing a line dance because Brad said we needed to make it 90s country. So we threw in a line dance. And I'm realizing like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to introduce Kelly Bannon next, and I'm not going to be able to do that. And so I like just the chaos of the moment and like trying to do a line dance and flip through my index cards to get the right card to give to my sister so she can carry on. It was just like the whole thing was so traumatic. And I thought maybe the next week, it would come back.
Yeah.
And it would come back, but it would be very, very breathy.
Was this
in a
so
loud
hard
room.
socially, I
It was
imagine?
awful.
Oh
It was
my gosh,
awful.
like restaurants,
Yeah.
oh hey friends,
Yeah.
all the parties you have outside.
Right. Or even even in my own house, like calling my kids, "You're late for school. They can't hear me." One of the first things Brad got me was a megaphone, which was really, really romantic. Talk about romance. That was very thoughtful.
That's so great.
But yeah, it was terrible. And I love to throw out a good one-liner and no one would hear me.
Oh.
It was like so much of our personalities are in our voice, expressed in our voice.
Yes.
Especially mine. I'm an actor. I'm a public speaker.
Yeah.
Using my voice as part of my value system.
Yeah.
So I had to really figure out what was this trying to teach me, and then what other ways can I use my voice. I wrote a lot, and talked to people one-on-one, but like even talking on the phone was hard.
You had a horrible surgery, didn't you? You had like some
wasn't
kind of
horrible.
terrible, like you had to stay. No, you had to stay awake.
Wait,
Any
you
surgery.
have to reframe. You have to reframe.
I
That's what I'm saying.
refuse. You were awake for a surgery equals horrible.
Listen, to me, that is the most important thing because it's all about opening my eyes. What is this trying to teach me? There's no way I could sleep through that.
I want to close my eyes and skip some things. There's a lot I want to skip. It's so funny because I often have to have these like I'm like always growing new things in my terrible colon. And lately though, I've gotten so excited about because I'm getting more and more used to being comfortable with the fear. And so lately I'm just like crawling right up on that table myself, putting my own gas mask on.
Oh my
I
gosh.
usually will say something totally ridiculous because you're naked and it's so gross and you look terrible. So I'm like, did anyone else here go to Yale? We're peers. Like shove a gas mask on my own self and go to sleep. Oh, if I can skip it, I'm out.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I'll be gone. I want to learn less. But I do really appreciate how you're a very not platitude person, but you're also like a learner. Like if there's an opportunity for you to learn something, for you to grow, I think you do like aim yourself at like, if there is anything here for me, I want it.
Yeah. One of your episodes that meant so much to me was Rabbi Leader.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Leader,
Yeah,
right?
you got it.
Oh my gosh. When he talked about if you're going through hell, don't come out empty-handed. That I was like, yes, I am taking that and I am carrying that with me wherever I go.
That
That meant so much to me. I think that's really, really valuable.
That's so great. I
But yeah,
totally agree. I feel that way about like about threading that needle, about like not happening to me for a reason, but I will find whatever there is here for me to find and discover and to learn and to cherish. I will take
yeah.
it. I will take it. I was wondering how you're the most playful mom. You also live in a house of Lego, which I also love. Like, how do you think this openness to trying to learn from difficult times has changed how you are as a parent?
That's a great question. I have a senior right now,
Oh, wow.
and that's a, that's a whole thing. Um, and I was just thinking today that I feel like I've turned a corner from like going like, okay, we're going to be a family who does game nights on Saturdays, or like, okay, we're going to be the family who, um, sits around and does a group Lego project. Like, that ship sailed now. And, and instead it's like, okay, kids, who are you and how can I fit into that part of your life?
Oh, that's
I'm
nice.
just not in charge the way I used to be. My oldest finally got his license and he's driving himself now. But like, I just feel like now I'm sort of, I'm working on sitting back and not micromanaging, because so much of parenting for me for so many years, and when they're younger, it
Mhm.
makes sense, is the micromanaging. And I've had to be very conscious about not doing that now,
Yeah.
and just letting everybody in the family just be who they are, be responsible for who they are, and embrace that and love that.
Mm.
And that's why my house is a house of Lego.
I know. No, I love I love that. Well, it does sound like that sounds like it matches up exactly with what someone told me about learning to be the parent of adult children. He said, I just really try to remind myself to be curious about whatever they happen to be obsessed with now, even though it's not
Yes.
dinosaurs. Like it's
Yes.
sometimes it's rockets, just
Yes.
adult men sitting around talking about rockets.
Right.
But I like that idea of like not yanking them into where you are, but just following them where they go and then just sitting there and being very interested.
Yes. And sometimes they're like, Mom, you're not really interested, are you? And I'm like, I'm trying. And also, by the way, I don't have to always be interested. And that's another thing, is like, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go for a walk with a friend. It's okay.
I do
Like, I
think
don't have to be interested in everything.
I do think that makes me happy because I thought I was the only parent who looks at my son if he's trying to describe a video game and I was like, boring. And he's like, Mom. I was like, I refuse.
Yeah. I mean, they do that to me. Come on. Equal opportunity boredom.
But Lovey, you obviously have a long genetic line of mastering difficulty and adversity with delight and also curiosity. And I'm so grateful that you're somebody who embodies like grace and a desire to learn in all things, like beautiful and terrible. And
Thank
Kim, I
you.
just feel really lucky to be your friend. Thanks so
I
much for
feel
doing
lucky to
this
be
with
your
me.
friend, and thank you for letting me come on, because I know I demanded it.
Oh,
And I appreciate it.